I think when it comes to issues of taxation, revenue collection, and our national budget, there are a number of issues that come to mind. One is that you have a budget that has been growing, that's no doubt. You have revenues that have also been growing, but not at the same rate as the budget is growing. What that means is that the budget deficit has been growing. And, you know, when you have a budget deficit, you really mean that you are going to borrow, because where there's no other place where you get money as a government to plug a budget deficit. Because if there was, you'd put it in the projections for revenue collection. So it's really bad fiscal planning for a government to allow the deficit to continue to grow. But it's also testimony of the failure of Parliament, because Parliament is the oversight body that approves whatever budget statements come from Treasury. And therefore, what we are looking at is a failure of our oversight institutions. You might already know, for example, that Parliament had approved a ceiling for our debt at 50% of GDP. That has been exceeded by about 10%. So we are now at about 60%. And Parliament just the other day approved the fixing of that ceiling to 9 trillion. There were no questions asked or any accountability meted out on those who are responsible for violating the law. So it tells you that when it comes to issues of taxation and the budget, the laws are pretty much just a suggestion. They can be broken down willy-nilly with no consequences to the political class. Having said that, as the budget grows and the deficit grows, we have to borrow more. So the debt grows. When the debt grows, and it grows at a rate that squeezes the available money for development, it could easily lead to a stagnating economy. Because for you to spur growth in the economy, you've got to inject money into sectors that would enable the economy to grow. I think we've had a lot of emphasis on infrastructure projects. I think the debate that we haven't had as Kenyans, and it would be important to have this, is that roads, airports, railways are important, a catalyst of economic growth, but they will be useful if they are acquired within reasonable means and with the kind of resources that would give the best value for money. As it is, we've gone for commercial loans on a number of these projects, while we could actually have gone for very concessional loans. We've seen loans we are paying at 7%, 9%, and others at 0.85%, 1%, 1.2%. So I don't get a sense that in the last 5 years, I think the ICC question and the decision of the government to run away from traditional concessional lenders has proved to be very costly for this country, and will be for a long time to come, because we have a lot of debts that we have to pay. And I think there's a lot of dishonesty also on the part of our policymakers regarding the level of debt and its impact on our economy. But unfortunately, matters economy cannot be covered for long, because the citizen will feel the health of the economy into their pocket, right into their houses. They're able to tell whether the economy is doing well or bad. So the other impact of that is that then it squeezes basic services. So the money that is going to health and, say, water provision, education, goes down. And I think the easiest culprit in such circumstances is actually the health sector. So that you have a facade of a functional health system, but that health system simply has personnel and nothing more. So you go to a public hospital and you are given a prescription to go and buy drugs. And that is already happening. So these are important conversations to have because of all these things that I have mentioned. But that is also compounded by the fact that corruption has really grown also. The amounts of money we are talking of being misappropriated and cannot be accounted for has been growing again over the years. And we have seen not very determined attempts to punish those who have been responsible for this and to recover what they have stolen. So the accountability question, again, is one that must be tied very closely to matters of taxation, revenue collection, debt, and the growth of the budget. It is true that the president has recently come out strongly to say that he is going to rid this country of corruption. But so far, I think while the efforts are appreciated and could have the potential to take us forward, there's many Kenyans are still skeptical as to how far this will go, because beyond just besides just prosecuting people, which is an important part of spurring the fight against corruption in this country, there are many administrative measures that can be put in place that would help address these issues. And I will demonstrate to you that this is not being done by just giving you two examples in the recent past. The first example is the contention between the Senate and the National Assembly on the Division of Revenue Bill. The other one is the fixing of the debt at 9 trillion, and juxtapose that with the fact that we have a budget that had been put in place for this financial year, and that you have one cabinet secretary exiting the scene and another one coming in an acting capacity and has to re-engineer the budget so considerably, and if you speak to both of them, they are right in their own way, if you so say. But you can see already a loophole. You can see that government is behaving itself in a manner that makes it difficult for Kenyans to trust what they say. And you can already see also the public debate around, the core issues of, interest rates and the borrowing ceiling has not been encouraged at all. So it's been in controlled environments within Parliament, but public memoranda and the public participation that you would expect on an important issue like this has been stifled. And I wouldn't be surprised that, a concerned Kenyan could easily even go to court and strike these ones down. And maybe that is what needs to be done so that government can take more seriously their responsibilities under the Constitution to make sure that they just don't make decisions for themselves, but they make decisions for Kenya and the interest of the public. And in all this, the role of the citizen is really critical. We've just talked about the lack of public participation in all these things. But at the end of it, citizens will see the impact of it. As we borrow more and we squeeze our development expenditure window, citizens will feel the pinch. And unfortunately, at that point in time, it will be too late for anything to be done. So I think it really behooves our institutions to encourage that public debate so that even if Kenyans do not fully agree with what government is doing, at least they quite understand where the government is coming from with all this. And that also government fiscal policies can be interrogated and critiqued. And if that were to happen, then we would realize that the space we have for the kind of mistakes that have been made in our fiscal policies will not be made in the future. But it is the lack of public participation around matters finance, the fact that Treasury goes ahead to do its thing without recourse to the public, that these mistakes can be made. And some of them are actually not mistakes, they are actually engineered purposely towards a particular end.